I have to say, this was very exciting. We don't always, as MCs, get to be sort of fangirling for the people that we get to introduce, so this is a real treat. Our next speaker is no stranger to achieving excellence or overcoming obstacles. As an Olympic 400-meter hurdler and Pan American silver medalist, Sarah Wells knows the mindset of grit and the amount of failure it takes to achieve a high level. As a renowned keynote speaker, Sarah has been featured in publications like Forbes, Best Health Magazine, and Thrive Global. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, our Olympian here at the Northwest Event Show, fellow mom, and total badass, Sarah Wells.
Thank you, Devin. You are amazing. I'm gonna give you a hug. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, yes, I need this.
There you go.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing? Okay, there's a bit more energy on these sides than these sides, so let's get that up. How are you guys doing today? Okay, I'll take it. But I am so excited to be here speaking all about excellence. Because you guys, as event people, you know excellence. You know what it's like to juggle 1,000 things. You know what it's like to invest in the small little details because they'll make a big difference. And do you guys remember this meme that went viral in the pandemic? This is event planning, right? It's just like the world's on fire. You're like, it's fine. Except for here in the Pacific Northwest, it looks more like this. You know, when I moved here 3 years ago to Seattle, it was hilarious. My husband and I would go to dinner. It would be pouring rain outside. We'd walk up to the hostess and she'd be like, would you like to sit outside? It's like, pardon? But like I said, you guys know excellence. And it's really exciting to be here with all of you because it is in my hometown as a proud Seattleite now. And because it's at home, usually I'm flying all over the world for my speeches, but I was actually able to invite my husband, Blake, today. And I want to introduce you to my husband, Blake, because he is someone who I truly admire for his pursuit to excellence. But first, look at this man, okay? I'm an ain't need no man kind of lady, but finding Blake is like finding chocolate on your hotel room pillow, and you're like, I mean, I wasn't looking for it, but it'd be silly not to eat it. And so to give you an idea of who Blake is, I love coffee. And so Blake decided to research and study the science behind coffee. And that led him to setting the hot water temperature in our home to the perfect temperature that would pull out the coffee flavor bloom. He also installed a reverse osmosis machine in our kitchen so that we would have the optimal mineral content for that brew water. So what I'm saying is, I've hit the jackpot. And I'm so grateful for the time in my life that I met Blake, because before I met him, I was training for the Olympics, and I was head down and focused on my goals, and I wasn't ready to compromise for anyone else's. I was also really afraid of those tough conversations required, and I actually had a checklist that I would use in every relationship I was in to decide if I thought it was going to work out, as if there is a rubric to love. And in 2017, I was going through a bit of a dark time in my life, and I think that we can all agree that that is the perfect time to join a dating app. Did anyone here meet their partner on a dating app? Okay, like two of you guys meet each other? No? Okay. They say events is a family. I don't know. Well, in 2017, I joined this dating app, and as some of you might know, when you make a profile, it's just your first name, and you put up a few photos. But I was going through a bit of an identity crisis, so I didn't put any photos of me as an athlete or running. And this one particular night, I start making my first few matches, and I have to choose who to write to and what do I say. And so I choose some guy named Blake. And I say, you probably don't believe me, but this is my first Bumble message ever. To which Blake responded, I believe you. I'm just wondering how many times you copy and pasted this until you got to me. And I was like, I like you, you're clever. And I said, no, for real, this actually is the first message. And he said, well, then why did I deserve this honor? And Blake had pictures of him rowing. And so I said, well, if nothing else, we can talk about sports. I'm a runner. And Blake said, well, what kind of running do you do? Expecting me to say something normal, like 5K, 10K, marathons. And I said that I run 400-meter hurdles. Blake has this light bulb moment, and he's like, oh, shoot, you're Sarah Wells. Now, it is just your first name on these profiles, okay? So I am like, first hour on online dating, this man knows my full name. I'm looking outside my window like, you out there, what's happening? And he's like, I remember watching your race during the Olympics. I'm like, sure you did, bro. You probably just Googled right now, Sarah 400-meter hurdles and found me on the internet. And I'm like, cool, period, moving on. I didn't want to talk about it. Eventually, we go and we sit down on our first date. And Blake opens with the line, I have something creepy to tell you. Which for my friends still on the dating apps, that is a terrible opening line. And Blake proceeds to tell me that he said, this actually isn't the first time we've ever talked. Remember I told you that I watched your race at the Olympics? Well, I saw you make it onto the semifinals, but you ultimately didn't win a medal, and I knew that the media would only celebrate the medalists, and I wanted to make sure that you felt celebrated and acknowledged for all of the effort and energy you put into this. And my heart was melting. I was like, that is so sweet. What happened? Did I write back? Did we talk back and forth? Like, where is the message? And so I make Blake pull up his Facebook Messenger archives, to which he writes this beautiful message, and I respond back, thanks so much. That really touched my heart, which I copy and pasted in every conversation I got that time. But Blake responds to that message, and I never write again until he is the very first person I write to on Bumble nearly 4 years later. And now we're married. I know, crazy. And I'm so grateful for the time that this all took place, for the moment that I was sitting across from him on that first date. Because by the time I got to that moment, I had become the type of person who realized that there was more to life than the Olympics. I had become the type of person who realized that those tough conversations are actually really healthy parts of communication. And I had come to know that that undescribable feeling is love. It's not found in a checklist. And when I reflect back on everything now, I realize that I had it all wrong. I thought that I was dating in order to find the one, but it is so much bigger than that. Because every single one of us, all of our past relationships, have helped shape us into the people we are today. It's taught us about our insecurities. It's taught us about our strengths. It's taught us about where we want to grow. And all of my past relationships were helping form me to become the type of person who would attract someone as incredible as Blake. And this isn't just a guiding principle for relationships. This is a guiding principle for every area of your life. Whether that is the promotion you're chasing, whether that is the event or client you want to do an event for one day, or whether it's just the opportunities you want to come your way. Become the type of person who is not only deserving, but is ready for when that opportunity shows up. And what that means is investing into your leadership. It means coming to amazing events like this today and jumping in wholeheartedly to meet people, to network, to refine your skills, strengthen your character, refine your leadership. Choose excellence so that you put yourself in the best position possible to have excellence choose you. But we're far more familiar with the concept of success, the outcomes, the awards, the things we want to impress our friends with. But excellence isn't about the outcomes. Excellence is who we become in pursuit of our goals. And in the last decade that I've been studying leadership and peak performance, there is one thing that the best organizations and individuals do to succeed, and that is create a culture of excellence. And so today, we're going to talk about how you can cultivate that in the everyday. But before I go any further, it's essential I test the reaction time of all of my audiences, so I need you to clap your hands twice as fast as you can. Go! We got some false starts over here. That's no medal for you. Let's try that again. Clap your hands twice. Go! What are we doing out here? We're not going to have anyone left by the end of this. All right. Try again. Fast as you can. Go. Faster. 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 Okay. That last one. That probably took you half a second. What if the difference between epic success and total failure happened in that half a second? Well, as a track athlete, that half a second can be the difference between winning an Olympic gold medal or walking away empty-handed, very quickly forgotten. Now, later today, after I finish this presentation, I hope to share with many of you and have you hold this silver medal. And I cannot tell you how often I wonder, could this have been gold? The reason I wonder, could this have been gold, is I won this at the Pan American Games race. Now, Pan American Games is kind of like the Olympic final, because it's all the fast countries in the world. It's North America, Central America, South America. I was in an outdoor stadium of 20,000 people. There was one woman in each lane, 10 hurdles around the track. And in the lane next to me was the #1 ranked woman in the world. Now, track and field is absolute. I knew her personal best time was better than my personal best time. So I figured I would be seeing her in front of me the entire time. When the gun went off, I locked into my race plan. I was just going through everything my coach and I had been practicing for years. I couldn't hear or see anything that was going on around me. And so when we get about 3/4 of the way around the track, I leap up over the second last hurdle. And it was the first time I kind of came back to reality. And I remember looking over in that lane next to me, and I was winning. And I thought, where is she? She should be here by now. And as we got over that second last hurdle, we start sprinting towards the final one, and she charges forward. She gets gold. I get silver. And I cannot tell you how often I wonder, what if I didn't have that split-second thought? What if I hadn't have questioned what I was capable of? Could that have been gold? The biggest obstacle on our pursuit to excellence will be the limiting beliefs we place on ourselves. So if we can remove those limiting beliefs, then we can start to see our challenges as opportunities. If we can remove those limiting beliefs, then we can start to become more adaptable in the face of friction. If we can remove those limiting beliefs, then we can stop comparing ourselves to others and instead recognize that excellence isn't about outperforming the people beside you. Excellence is about outperforming who you were yesterday. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing is that we have to go all in. Now, I got pretty lucky in high school because I really wanted to be a sporty, athletic girl. And so I tried out for the basketball team, the volleyball team, the soccer team, the field hockey team, the badminton team, you name it, I tried out. And I got cut from every single one of those teams. I was so convinced I was the least athletic human on the planet. I got cut from badminton. Isn't that just like tennis for people with weak wrists? It's like a hard thing to do to get cut from badminton. But eventually in freshman year, my high school teacher sees me in gym class, sees me run up to a soccer ball, get there, do nothing with that, and then accelerate away again. And he's like, Sarah, you should come up with the track team. You can run. And so that high school teacher took me under his wing and started to train and develop me. And eventually, after my first few weeks of training, I won my first race. And then after a few months, I won our state championships. And after a year and a half, I went and competed on the world stage for the very first time at the World Youth Championships. And that had me inspired, and I set my sights on one day, I want to make the Olympics. Now, the year before the London Olympic Games, I was at a training camp doing 2-a-day workouts, crushing these workouts, trying to make this dream come true. And the morning after the biggest workout of the week, I got out of bed, I stepped down, and all of a sudden I got this searing pain at my leg, and I crumbled to the floor. And I was like, oh my gosh, what was that? Nothing happened yesterday. There was no moment of impact. I didn't pull anything. What is this? And at the doctor's office later that day, we found out that I had developed a stress fracture in my femur. Now, your femur is your massive thigh bone, the biggest bone in your entire body. And a stress fracture is a deterioration of that bone from the inside out that leads to a crack. So the biggest bone in my entire body was breaking in half the year before the Olympics. When the doctor told me this, my heart sank. I was freaked out. I was like, no, I don't have time for this. How long do I have to sit out for? And the doctor said I'd have to sit out for 3 months. Now, 3 months was already way too much time because at that point in my career, I had never touched Olympic standard before. The minimum qualifying time you have to hit in order to go to the Olympic Games, I had never come close. I had only ever run 56 seconds for the 400-meter hurdles, and I needed to run 55 seconds in order to qualify. Now, we just talked about how half a second is a big deal. So having to improve an entire second was like an eternity. I needed every day, every week, every month to make this dream come true. I left the doctor's office that day bawling my eyes out. The next morning, my coach called me into his office, and I walked in basically dragging my arms on the floor. And he said, Sarah, right now, you have a choice. Because you can throw your hands up in the air and say, the odds are against me, there's no point in trying, I quit, I give up. Or you can keep showing up. Because sure, you can't run right now, but we can go into the gym and sit down on the floor so there's no weight on your leg, and we can do arm exercises so you have an even better arm drive when you are cleared to run. And sure, we can't hurdle, but we can do core work that's going to allow you to improve your form and create you as a better hurdler when you are cleared to run. You see, there's so many small, minute, little things we could be working on the foundational level, but it's so hard to choose to slow down when we're so busy chasing the next big thing. But sometimes our greatest opportunity to improve ourselves lies when we're met with challenge. And I'm sure that every single one of us sitting here can think of a moment where we were met with a challenge and that actually inspired us to become the person we are today. Maybe you lost your job during the pandemic, but it inspired you to start your own agency. Maybe you were given budget cuts that had you have to think about ways that you could maximize every dollar for your event. Or maybe you had a bad attendee experience that has now had you realize how you're going to make sure that that never happens again. Sometimes our greatest challenges inspire us to become the best version of ourselves. And so that's what we did. Over the course of those 3 months, we focused on the foundational elements. We found the things that we could stay within reach of. And we chipped away. And those 3 months, they eventually went by. And at the doctor's office, I remember sitting in there waiting for the doctor to come in. The second that he did, I started swinging my legs and I said, okay, can I go? Can I train? Is it healed? And the doctor pulled up the new scan, looked at it, looked back at me. He's like, I'm so sorry, Sarah. The bone isn't healed. Come back in another month. That 4th month turned into 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months. 9 months, the year before the Olympics, I'm just sitting around watching my teammates and friends and competitors get better and faster and stronger while I watch my dream slip away. 9 months. You can build a whole new human in 9 months. I couldn't heal one bone. After sitting out for those 9 months, the hardest 9 months of my entire life, by the time I was cleared to actually get back to training, I had 6 months left to get back to who I was before the injury and still improve that entire second. On my first day back to training, I did a few pathetic jogging laps around the track. And then I immediately left, and I went walking down a dark alley, and I sat in a chair with a man next to me with a needle. I was getting a tattoo. What do you guys think I was doing? But I decided to get the word believe tattooed onto my wrist. Now, I am not suggesting that you have to tattoo yourselves of your goals, okay? You don't need to get registration or watch less Keynote speakers or whatever it is that you need. But I am encouraging you to find your word or phrase or quote or object or image or whatever that is for you that reminds you of the strength that you have inside. People in the events industry are literally responsible for dreaming up the impossible and then bringing it to life. What is that word that reminds you that that magic is in you? For me, that word was believe. And so I set out to make this impossible dream come true. And when I first got back, I sucked. I was so embarrassed telling people I was trying to make the Olympics when I couldn't win a practice, let alone the Olympic trials in a few months. And my coach reminded me that where we're at today is not a predictor of where we can be in the future. And right now, maybe you have something or someone that's been tying your hands, and so you're not in the place that you want to be. And you may not be responsible for how you got here, but you are responsible for how you move through this going forward. And so instead of focusing on the things that might be out of your control, we have to remember that our greatest power lies in improving the things that are within our reach. And so my coach and I, we focused in on the little things. We did the things that allowed us to keep moving forward and create momentum. And by the time the London Olympic trials came around, 6 months later, standing behind my blocks that day, I was so nervous. Has anyone here ever had butterflies in their stomach? Okay, a number of you. I didn't have butterflies. I had vampire bats with machetes in their hands. I was so scared, waiting for the starter to say those scary words, on your marks. And I started getting into my blocks, and all I was thinking was, I hate this sport. I'm so scared, I'm so nervous. Look at the girl in the other lane. She looks bigger and faster and stronger. I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't. Set, bang, gun goes off. I come out so fast. I remember attacking every single hurdle like it was the absolute last one, hearing the announcer over the PA system say, and that's Sarah Wells in lane 4. I was like, will you shut up? I'm really trying to focus here. Coming around in the final corner, every ounce of my body is flooded with lactic acid, that burning sensation you get when you run as hard as you can. This lady here is like, no. Coming around the final corner, I sprint over the final finish line. I lean, and I look up at the scoreboard. And I won. I won Olympic trials, and I was going to the London Olympics. I couldn't believe it. It was the most surreal experience of my entire life. And for anyone who's ever run to this place before, you don't know if you're gonna throw up or die in that moment. And so I just kind of crawled over to this grass patch. My siblings, they were in the stands that day, so they came running down like, dug, 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 dug. And I was laying there and they're like, oh my God, you did it, oh my God. And I look like a newborn baby who has no idea what's happening. They were all just saying, this is the best day of my whole life. It's the best day of my life. And that moment, the best day of my whole life, happened because 6 months before that, I had the courage to believe in me. Now, I know that some of you are sitting here thinking, ew, oh God, this is who they brought in? This girl's got her head in the clouds. Yes, Sarah, I'm just gonna believe in myself and all this tariff trouble of people not coming to America is just gonna go away. I'm just gonna believe in myself and my budget will suddenly come back. I'm just gonna believe in myself and all my problems are gonna go away. Show me how that's gonna work, Sarah. But when you say it like that, it sounds like I'm telling you to just walk into a room and be like, I believe in myself, so stuff should start happening now. But when I say believe in yourself, I mean that you are brave enough to have a vision, a goal, so scary that some people do think you're insane for having it. And then you know it's gonna be hard, yet you have the grit to go for it anyways. And then when those obstacles do start arising, you find your way over, around, under, through, whatever it takes, because you actually believe that if anyone can do it, it's you. That's what I mean by believing in yourself, having that vision, grit, and resilience. It's not just walking into a room saying, I've got this. And you know what? Affirmation alone, you're right, might not be enough. There was a study done by the Journal of Psychological Sciences where they had a group of people and they split them into high self-esteem and low self-esteem. And they had them recite the line, I am a lovable person. And the people with high self-esteem, after they used this line, they felt better. It affirmed them. It made them feel empowered. But the people who had low self-esteem, they felt worse because they didn't believe it. It actually made them feel even more like an imposter. It made them even further separated from this thing. And so if right now, the goal and the vision that you have for yourself, if it feels literally impossible and you don't believe it, well then, instead, I want you to ask yourself the question, what of this is possible? What is one step you can take towards that goal that puts you into momentum? Because the second that you take that first step, well, maybe the second door pops open. Or maybe you meet someone at an event, or you gain a skill or experience that allows you to understand a bit more about what you're doing and creates even further momentum. And over time, that momentum starts to build. And now that thing that you thought was impossible, suddenly it's within reach. And now we can use the power of affirmation. Now we can start to go all in. Because in order to achieve anything truly great, you first have to believe you can. Go all in. The second element of excellence I want to share with you today is that we have to be brave enough to break the blueprint. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, I have to get kind of technical on you. Because when you jump over a hurdle, the leg that goes over first is called the lead leg. I know, brilliant minds, we're up to labeling these things. But the same way that you have a favorite leg to kick a soccer ball with, I have a favorite leg to jump over the hurdle with. And the best athletes in the world, they take 15 strides between the hurdles because what that allows them to do is get their favorite lead leg over the hurdle every time. But when I was first learning how to hurdle back in high school, my coach said, no, you're not gonna have a favorite leg. I'm gonna teach you how to hurdle with both lead legs so that way you can, whatever happens in the race, you can just jump over whichever way you need. And so I actually could hurdle with both lead legs. And when I was coming back from that stress fracture injury trying to make the Olympics, I had lost so much muscle in my leg that every single time I would push off this leg, I wasn't getting as far, and that made it really hard to get 15 strides. And so as we kept trying, my coach one day said, Sarah, what if we took 16 strides? And I was like, you can't be serious. Like, there are 10 hurdles. So that means I'd have to take 10 extra steps compared to everyone else. And I would have to alternate which lead leg every time. And he said, yeah, but you can do that. You know how to hurdle with both lead legs. I was like, yeah, but nobody who's world class does that. And he said, I'm sorry, are you trying to make the Olympics the way everyone else does? Or are you trying to make the Olympics any way you can? And he was right. The goal wasn't to do it the way that everyone else was. The goal was to make the Olympics, period. And so we made a bet. We made a bet on my strength to be able to alternate which lead leg I jumped over the hurdle with. And at first it wasn't working. And I wanted to throw out the plan. But he made me stick with it just a bit longer. And one day, it clicked. And as you know, I then went on to compete at the Olympic Games in London. And I was one of the only athletes to run on a 16-stride race pattern. And every single one of us in this room has that capacity. You have a skill or experience or strength that is uniquely yours that might just be your superpower. But you might not know it's your superpower because it's so easy for you that you think everyone can do it. But when we are met with challenge, when we are met with change, when we are met with circumstances that are tough to deal with, we have to look to our strengths because it just might be the path through. I want to give you a really good example of this. The gentleman here in the green shirt, his name is Anthony Mockus. And Anthony was a mathematician by trade. And he wanted to run for the city of Bogota mayorship. And people were like, no, this guy's a mathematician. He knows nothing about politics. And he was known for being quite silly and quirky. And people were like, he's never going to win, and he's never going to be able to create any actual change. And so he runs for mayorship, and he does end up winning. And when he started to look at some of the issues he wanted to resolve in the city of Bogota, one of them was that there were so many civilian deaths related to traffic accidents. And he looked at this challenge in a way that probably none of us would. What Anthony Mockus decided to do was that he was going to hire 550 mimes to take to the streets and mock people who broke the traffic laws. And that social pressure alone was enough to get people to change their behaviors. Brilliant. And so unique to him. Another great example of this is the Savannah Bananas. Now, some of you are already laughing, so you know what this is, and some of you that don't, you gotta check it out. Because Savannah Bananas took over in a city in Savannah where their minor league baseball team couldn't get people in the seats. They were losing a ton of money. They actually moved the minor league baseball team out of the city. And a gentleman named Jesse Cole, who was a collegiate baseball player, said, I'm going to replace that team with an independent baseball team where we're going to do everything differently. We want to make an unparalleled fan experience. And so Jesse actually had a slogan that said, whatever is normal, we're going to do the opposite. And so something that's normal at a baseball game would be to have cheerleaders. And Jesse created the Dad Bod Cheering Squad. Some of you are like, I got my next career path, okay. Now, another normal thing would be to have someone leading the 7th inning stretch. Well, in Savannah, that is led by the Banana Nanas. Now, Jesse was willing to try anything, and one of those things was actually he wanted to do a flatulence night. He put whoopee cushions on all the chairs because he thought it would be funny. Turns out, if you're not a 6-year-old boy, it's not actually that funny, and it was quite disruptive, so they never did that again. They also experimented with the idea of all-you-can-eat tickets, where you didn't have to, have only a certain number of concessions. You could have anything you wanted. And that was exciting, but led to a lot of supply chain issues and in crazy long lineups, so they threw out the idea. And so even though these things didn't work, it was the experimentation mindset that led Jesse to the things like the Banana Nanas and the Dad Bod Cheering Squad. And so we have to know that when we're looking to our strengths, we have to give ourselves and our teams permission to try and know that it's not always going to work out, but it's that experimentation mindset that's going to lead us to the things that become our differentiator. Now, if you don't know what your superpower is, that secret strength of yours, ask. Ask your friends, ask your colleagues, ask someone who knows you really well, because you might not see it because it's so easy for you. But maybe you are incredible at connecting with others, and you think of ways that you can create experiences at your events for people to connect in ways that they didn't even know that they needed. Or maybe you're an incredible listener, and when people are not seeing eye to eye or they're not really understanding each other, you can help them understand what each person is saying to come to a collective decision. Or maybe you are an incredible storyteller, and you can set a vision that helps your organization or your team see what's possible with the event you are planning. The Savannah Bananas, after not being able to sell tickets at all, have now sold out their stadium for the last 3 years. They have amassed millions of social media followers, and they have literally changed the game. For me, that was 16 strides. For you, what is that? And you know what? When you see 16, from this point going forward, I want you to think of me. If you sit in the 16th row of an airplane, I want you to ask yourself the question, am I using my strengths? If you see 16 on a price tag, I want you to ask yourself the question, am I using my strengths? If you go to an event and you sit at table 16, I want you to ask yourself, am I using my strengths? What is your 16 strides? When we do this, we achieve greatness in a way that only you can. What is your 16 strides? The third element of excellence I want to share with you today is that we have to find strength in our stumbles. Now, I just shared with you how in my pursuit of the first Olympics that I went to, London Games, I had an injury, and I overcame it. And then I made it to the Olympics, and it was awesome, highlight of my life. And the Olympics comes back around every 4 years. Just because you made the last Olympic Games does not guarantee that you'll make the next ones. Now, lucky for me, I'd been continuing to get better and faster and stronger as an athlete. And I had just come off winning that silver medal where I only lost to the #1 ranked woman in the world. And so heading into the Rio Olympics, I was a medal hopeful. And that was exciting because all the media was around me, I was getting endorsement deals. And it also created a lot of pressure and a lot of stress because I knew what I was capable of, I knew where I had been, and I felt like I didn't want to disappoint anyone and let them see anything but that. And so 6 weeks before the Rio Olympic trials, I had a workout on a Tuesday. Tuesday, I ran so fast, probably the fastest I've ever run in my entire life. And on Wednesday, I woke up, and my hamstring, the muscle in the back of your legs, they were super, super tight, which is totally normal, and many of you that work out, your body starts adapting, it gets sore, that happens. So when I woke up that Wednesday and my hamstrings were tight, I thought, maybe I shouldn't work out today. And then I thought, well, no, if I don't work out today, I'm not doing everything I can. If I don't do everything I can, I won't make the Olympics. If I don't make the Olympics, I won't win a medal. If I don't win a medal, I'm gonna let everyone down. So I went to the track, and I worked out anyways. And about halfway through, my coach, he notices, and he says, Sarah, you look a bit tired today. Let's shut it down here. Let's stop here. And in my crazy brain, I was like, no, I can't stop. What should I tell him? Hey, coach, let's play a game. How about if I run the next interval slower, I'll stop. But if I run the next interval the same or better, you have to let me keep going. He's like, okay, crazy lady, no one asked for more running, go ahead. And so for this next interval, I am now charging down the track, and I have to run the same or better in order to keep going. And if you can imagine what it would feel like to have a Ziploc bag full of air, tightly sealed, placed in the back of your leg, and as you are sprinting along, have that explode, that's what it felt like when I face planted to the floor, ripped an inch tear in my hamstring. And 4 years after I thought I had already overcome the biggest obstacle in my career, I learned another hard lesson. I laid on that track bawling my eyes out because I knew it was bad. The noise that it made when my hamstring exploded sounded like a gunshot. That night, I went home so mad at myself. I even woke up that morning and said, maybe I shouldn't work out today. And I now know that there are a few things that I still needed to learn. The first thing is that your highest level of success is not your new baseline. It's really hard for high achievers like us because we've put in the work, we see what that does, and because of that, we know what success looks and feels like. And we expect that nothing except for that or better will be seen as success. But that's so silly. Because success is not a video game, you hit a checkpoint, you never slide back down. Success is a roller coaster ride of good days and bad days. And it's okay that over the course of time, there are gonna be bad days. There are going to be events that don't go perfectly to plan. There are gonna be years that make it harder in the event industry. But ultimately, that doesn't mean that you need to lose hope. Ultimately, that doesn't mean everything you know and do is gonna be thrown out for the rest of time. It just means that right now, it just might be one of those off moments. And your highest level of success is not your new baseline. The second thing I needed to learn through tearing my hamstring is that sometimes the very thing that has made you successful in the past is the exact thing holding you back from your future success. I genuinely believe I made the Olympics because I'm a person willing to get on the track, do the hard work, even on the days I don't want to. That is also the exact reason I tore my hamstring that day. And so as people who are used to juggling a bunch of things, I know you're like, no, Sarah, how I made successful is that I'll work until 3 a.m. in the morning and get up at 6 and I'll overload my plate and I'll take it and say, yes, that's for me. But when does that lead you to burnout? Or when does constantly taking it on yourself prevent you from learning how to delegate and empower your team? Sometimes the very thing that's made you successful in the past is the exact thing holding you back from your future success. After learning those two things and waiting for my muscle fibers to come back together from that torn hamstring, the Rio Olympic trials came around. Now, when the trials came around, I was about 90% healed. And I knew that they were sending the top 3 who qualified. And so, as a 4-time national champion, I thought, okay, I don't need to win, I just need to get top 3. And on the day of that race, I was so superstitious, because everything worked out for me 4 years ago. And so, I ate the same thing for breakfast. I called my mom the same number of hours out from the race. I looked down at this believe, and I said to myself over and over again, I believe in me. And when the gun went off, I came out so fast. Now, about halfway through the race, I was winning. And I thought, haha, suckers, I haven't even been training for 6 weeks. And as I come into that final corner, one girl comes into my vision. And I thought, that's okay, I just need to hold on to top 3. And then as we come to the second last hurdle, a second girl comes into my vision. And as we now approach the final hurdle, I leap up, and a third girl comes into my vision. And I thought, no, I want this more than she does. We are shoulder to shoulder. I get to the finish line, I lean, and I look up at the scoreboard. Top 3 make the Olympics, and I get 4th. 4th. 4 years of work, 4 years of sweat, 4 years of my life. And you want to guess how much I got 4th by? Half a second. The amount of time it took you to clap your hands twice as fast as you could at the beginning of today is the amount of time that I watched my dream of becoming an Olympic medalist evaporate in front of my eyes. I remember when we left the track that day, we pulled into the driveway of the Airbnb we were staying at, and I couldn't go into the house. I couldn't go into the house because I couldn't accept that this pursuit was over. For 4 years, I had been known as Sarah Wells, the Olympian. Please, welcome to the stage, Sarah Wells, the Olympian. And now, Sarah Wells, the Olympian, doesn't make the Olympics. And so instead of going into the house, I just opened the car door and fell onto the driveway and laid in fetal position and just cried and cried. I didn't get up off that floor for over an hour. And there's a bigger question here. Who are those neighbors? Why did they let that happen? And after that moment, I actually quit sport. And I always joke, it's probably not expected your motivational speaker to say, hey guys, when it's hard, just quit, just give up. Yep, good riddance. But what really happened is I only stepped away from sport for 1 year. And I just needed space between me and that moment. And I realized that I actually believed in myself more strongly after not making the Olympics, even more so than when I did. Because I still went to the track that day. I stood on that start line. I didn't let my circumstances define my outcome. And even though it didn't work out the way I had hoped, it showed me a strength inside I didn't even know that I had. And now every single time I share my 2 Olympic messages with audiences like yourselves, far more people come up to me after the fact and say they were more inspired by the time where I didn't make the Olympics over the time where I did. And I think that's because we can all remember our lay in the driveway in fetal position and cry moment. And it might not have looked exactly like that for you, but we can remember a time where we felt like a failure, where we thought our colleagues were going to lose respect for us, where we thought the entire world was going to flip upside down. And if you ever find yourself in that moment again, I hope you remember this conversation. And I hope that you remember that on our pursuit to excellence, we are supposed to hit the hurdle. What do I mean by that? Well, I always say that the easiest event to qualify for the Olympics in are the hurdle events, because so many people are afraid to hit the hurdles. Think of all the world-class runners who could have been Olympic hurdlers who wouldn't even try it. And so many of us do this in our own lives. We're so scared of looking stupid, of falling down, of embarrassing ourselves and failing when we experiment with that thing that we won't even try it. But what if we saw hitting the hurdle as a necessary step on our path to excellence? What if we saw hitting the hurdle as something we should actually celebrate? Because when these experiences happen, when we pursue excellence, hard work isn't always going to lead to success. That sucks, because when we put in the time and the effort, we feel like we deserve it. I agree. But hard work doesn't always lead to success. But being resilient, choosing to get back up, that will always help you find your next opportunity for success. Now, before I close out today, I saw some people taking photos of some of the slides, and if you'd like, I can send you these slides. If you can put your name and email in here. There's also a little box in there that you can share a message with me of what resonated today, because you don't always get to have conversations with every single person in the room, and it's always really great to hear what's stuck and what's resonating with you. And because you all are in the events industry, of course, if there is an opportunity you think I would be a good fit for, there's an opportunity if you just click a box there and I can send you some more materials. But how I want to close out today is actually a story that has nothing to do with the Olympics. And it is a story about another experience I was so fortunate to have on the Amazing Race. Now, where are my Amazing Race junkies in this room? Oh, we got someone who's like, yes, me. Okay, I love it. So for those of you that don't know what the Amazing Race is, it is a human science experiment. I did the Amazing Race with my teammate and friend. His name was Sam Effa. And the Amazing Race is where you do all these insane challenges all over the world, and they start with 10 teams, and then there's different checkpoints. And if you're the last of the checkpoint, you get eliminated. And they whittle it all the way down to a winner. Now, winners of the Amazing Race get $250,000 a trip around the world in 2 cars, one for each person. And Sam and I were like, we know pressure, we know stress, let's go, we can do this, we're gonna win. And we do all the crazy challenges. We bungee jump from our ankles from cliffs. We dive under one of the deepest Arctic lakes that was covered in 3 feet of ice, where they had carved out this tiny human fishing hole. I had to slither into it, find the clue, and then find the only other fishing hole in the entire lake. Now remember, I'm not athletic, so I can't swim. It was terrifying. It was the most miserable experience of my entire life. I was bawling my eyes out on national television. The cameraman was like, smudge the mascara. Yeah, this is good, thanks. So Sam and I do all these insane things. If you want to watch it, you can find it on YouTube, but I'm going to ruin it for you because I'm going to tell you how it ends. Sam and I, we make it to the finale. Now, we are so excited because, like I said, we feel like we know pressure, we know stress, and in the final episode, we are leading the pack, and then a hiccup occurs and another team catches up. But then we pull away again, and as we run towards the final checkpoint, that other team starts challenging us, and we end up getting second. Another silver medal. Damn it. Now, the worst part is that winners of the Amazing Race get $250,000 a trip around the world in 2 cars. Second place gets nothing. Nothing. Not even like lunch money. Thank you so much for coming out. Nothing. And when we go home, we couldn't tell anyone what happened because it hadn't started airing on TV yet. And so eventually, when it does, our friends and family, they see us make it on, make it on, and make it on, and make it on, and make it on, until the finale. And of course, everyone's like, oh my gosh, you're gonna win, aren't you? I've played board games with you, you're gonna win. And I just had to shrug my shoulders and say, I guess you gotta wait and see. Because we had signed a contract with the network that said we would owe $3 million if we leaked any secrets. And we didn't win $250,000, so I did not have $3 million kicking around. And so Sam and I were talking, and we were like, oh, should we watch the show? It's going to be so painful to remember how close we got and how we don't win, and what should we do? So naturally, what we decided to do was rent a 500-person auditorium and invite everyone we've ever met to come with us. We even hired an MC for the event, so that way every commercial break he could pull us up on stage and we could do a bit of a Q&A. And so 500 people. Social media, we did raise money for charity, we did this whole thing. Of course, everyone thinks we're gonna win. And in the final moments, 500 people in this theater watch us run up and get second. And in that moment, it cuts the commercial break. And so the MC starts coming up to stage and starts calling us up. But the audience stands up and erupts in cheer. And instantly, I'm just so overcome with emotion remembering how close we got and how we didn't win. But it's commercial break, so he's calling us up on stage. And so I walk up on the stage, bawling my eyes out. And he says, Sarah, I can see you're upset. Why don't you tell the audience what's going through your head? And I looked at the audience and I said, we made a really big deal out of tonight. And I know because of that, many of you thought we won. But we didn't invite you here because we won. We invited you here because we didn't. And it's just as important to celebrate the shortcomings as it is to celebrate the successes, because that will always inspire your next chapter. That will always help you pick those lessons up and apply it to your next opportunity for success. And my hope for every single one of you is that after hearing what we've talked about today, that you are willing to push all of your chips in the middle and go all in. I hope that you are brave enough to think about what is your superpower, what is your 16 strides, and break the blueprint. And then, when you trip and you fall and you fail spectacularly, rent a theater. Celebrate. Celebrate that you are laying the foundation to your future success. Celebrate that you are becoming the type of person who will not only be deserving, but ready when that opportunity comes your way. Because regardless of success or setback, it's not an end point. It's simply a through point. My name is Sarah Wells. Thank you guys so much.